Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Saturday, January the 8th, 2022, and you are watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. My name is Bill Woodcock.
And I am the freshly boosted Steve Hunt. And when I say freshly, I'm talking about within the last hour. So all good, feeling good. Or as a famous philosopher said, feeling good, Lewis.
Get him, talk to him now before the side effects take effect. So Steve, question of our day for you. You know, being as you are a Washington sports aficionado, one of 8 confirmed fans of the Washington Wizards, the Washington football team earlier this week announced that its name is going to be revealed, its new nickname, on Groundhog Day. What do you think it will be, and what do you think it should be?
Well, I will tell you, quite frankly, that the whole Washington football team thing has grown on me. Now, full disclosure, I am not a fan of the football team, but it kind of has like a European soccer feel to it. So I was actually kind of getting used to it. But as far as names, if I had
Washington football team is an option. It does remain an option. You can say that.
I think they should keep that name and just roll with it. But the name I would throw out there would be the Red Hawks. And I was thinking about this as the announcement came out, and there's really nothing uniquely Washington that you could go with that hasn't already been taken. You can't go with the Capitals, can't go with the Senators. Even if you want to refer to, DC's go-go music, the G League team has that one snatched up. So if you go Red Hawks, I was thinking kind of like what St. John's University did when they went from Red Men to Red Storm. Number one, you can keep your colors. Number two, they actually have it's an old school helmet that was an arrow with a feather in it. You could certainly revise that for, just a feather or the bird or something of that nature. It plays well with the Birds of Baltimore, even though they might not play as well together on the field. But, you've got birds up the street 95, further up with the Eagles. Hawks are a common bird around here. And everybody uses the hashtag HTTR on social media. If you go with Red Hawks, you can keep the R. So there's my vote, the Red Hawks.
I'm not sure if Hawks or Red Hawks made it onto that last list.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm just throwing out what my thought would be.
What you think it should be. What you think it should be.
I don't care enough about this team to know what the finalists are, quite frankly.
So you really don't give a damn.
I really don't.
This was a poorly phrased question. I shouldn't have even asked this today.
But quite frankly, if football team is on the list, they ought to keep that. I kind of like. I'm getting used to that one.
You agree with the illustrious Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, who both said it should still be WFT on the Pardon the Interruption show last week. I am going to go with an R name, and in fact, there was only one name that was on the tentative list, or the supposed list of finalists, that starts with an R, and that was Red Hogs. And I actually like the concept of the name Red Hogs. It goes back to the history of the franchise, of course, with the Hogs. Yep. It plays well against Cowboys because, as there was of course, the cowboy and Indian motif with the prior name and the Cowboys, and you still have the Cowboys, amongst the many other animals Cowboys may try to herd would be hogs, and hogs could also run wild on Cowboys. There was some thought made to the uniform that, and you also keep the HTTR, and again, Hogs going with the name keeps it, there are other team names that are symbolic of the team's history, Browns and Packers being two. There was a mention of the 3 stars on the back of the jerseys being emblematic of the DC flag. I don't think that's the idea at all. I think that's part of it, but I think it's also emblematic of the 3 Super Bowls that the franchise has won. Just like other teams in other sports where stars on the front of their jersey for soccer championships and numbers on the back of their jerseys in baseball and basketball for championships won. So I'm seeing Red Hogs. That's what I think it's going to be. The Washington Red Hogs go with a completely different type of animal. Hail to the Red Hogs. It still works. You can still have that song. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, the hog reference obviously is good. Of course, when I think about the hogs, I think about what might be the world's worst ever local TV commercial. If anybody ever remembers the Mark May, Joe Jacoby, I think it was Theater Vision. And Mark May was fine, but Joe Jacoby obviously needed to be a football player. I can't get that commercial out of my head now.
Hi, I'm Joe Jacoby with the Washington prior name of football team here.
Yes.
All right. Well, we have other things to talk about, thank God, other than the new name of the Washington football team. Steve, we're here today to talk about the hot races in counties around the state of Maryland. And today we are going to focus on Howard County. So we have come up for you, the viewing and listening audience, with what we believe are the hottest races to watch in 2022. And so, Steve, we start in the western part of Howard County in State Legislative District 9, and specifically in State Legislative District 9A, where the incumbents are Republican delegates Reed Novotny and Trent Kittleman, who very narrowly defeated, or at least Delegate Kittleman and former Delegate Warren Miller very narrowly defeated Democratic challengers Natalie Ziegler and Steve. Oh my God, why am I blanking on Steve's name? I love Steve Bowen. Steve Bowen. In 2018. Steve, how are you reading the landscape in 9A?
It is a golden opportunity, and just to go, a little context here, the new legislative maps are being bounced around Annapolis. Obviously, Maryland being a blue state, the Democrats have, in essence, drawn the new maps. They have a supermajority in the House delegates and the state Senate, and so the expected veto by Governor Hogan will be overridden. So the maps will count. Howard County did very well in those maps. And one of the big things, to your point about 9A, and quite frankly, District 9, is the new map removes the Carroll County section of District 9 and replaces it with northern Montgomery County. And, if you crunch the numbers and go deeper into 2018, Natalie Ziegler, I believe, won the Howard County section of District 9A. I don't know what the exact order was behind her. I believe Steve Boland also did very well. And so if you swap out very conservative Carroll County with, some would say that northern Montgomery County is, maybe moderate, maybe swing, but it definitely makes 9A, and for Katie Fry Hester purposes, Senate District 9 bluer. So I think, we obviously don't know who may come out of Montgomery County by the filing deadline out of that section. I believe Natalie Ziegler's already in. I saw somewhere where Reed Novotny is, scheduling a kickoff event. And I believe Trent Kittleman, I believe she's in. I believe she had an event, and I believe it was the one in which Alan Kittleman announced he was running for county executive again. I know there was some tie-in between those two campaigns and obviously within the family there. So definitely opportunities there to flip those seats. And so it'll be very interesting to see how northern Montgomery County plays into the mix as far as what its population is, et cetera. But it absolutely is a race that I'm sure Maryland Democrats will be targeting both of those seats in terms of the House of Delegates.
Well, I would agree. I mean, in terms of of an opportunity for Maryland Dems to solidify a gain that it got in 2018. And despite what people may think, there weren't that many gains in terms of new parts of the state where Democrats expanded the playing field. I mean, the Republican drive for 5 to break the supermajority turned out to be a drive for 1. They wound up winning 1 Senate seat and on the Lower Eastern Shore. But for delegate, their friend of the program, Heather Bagnall, flipped the seat in District 33, which was awesome. And then we have, Senator Hester in District 9, Delegate Watson in District 9B in Howard County. Not that many other places. Northern Montgomery County is a place I know near and dear, not only having, spending a good amount of time, but way back in the last century, a 30-year-old youngster named Bill Woodcock ran in the old District 14, which includes the Brookville area. You are correct in that Brookville is not West Friendship and Daisy and Lisbon. However, Brookville is also not Olney or Silver Spring or Columbia. So there are opportunities there. It does tend a little bit more purple, but it's kind of a mulberry purple, not so much a indigo purple. So there's still some redness there. The good news is that if, and again, Trent Kittleman being the second wife of former State Senator Bob Kittleman, the father and the stepmother of County Executive candidate Alan Kittleman, is that the Republicans, when Bob Kittleman and Bob Flanagan ran in District 14, they basically act like they couldn't be bothered by representing Montgomery County. They could have gave 2 damp ones about Montgomery County. So that's an opportunity for Democrats there to hustle and to work. And one thing I would say about Steve and Natalie in District 9 in 2018 is that they worked really hard.
Yes.
So there is some opportunity there. What will be interesting to see on the other side is because there is some country in that part of the district. If we see in Maryland what was seen in Virginia in the governor's race and in the state legislative races, that would be red areas becoming redder and blue areas becoming not as much bluer as the red areas became redder. So in that case, I mean, if natural inertia goes in that direction, that obviously favors the Republicans. But this was a good pick. You talked me into a good race to talk about to kick off today's show.
Thanks, Bill. It is a good race, and I think you're right as far as candidates. And I think one of the reasons, one, they worked really hard. I mean, if I was rating 2018 campaigns as far as work and effort and doing everything you can to win, Ziegler and Bolin would have ranked very high. I got to know them over the course of the campaign, liked them both a lot. And I thought they were, along with Katie Fry Hester, the right candidates for that part of the county. So Natalie Ziegler back in is a plus. And I mean, you're not going to run, no offense to my friends in Columbia, you're not going to run a Columbia progressive type in that district, even with the change. It will not end well. So I think if you have a second candidate, whether it's Steve Bolin or somebody else that's in that vein of a Ziegler, a Hester, I think that helps with some of the things you're talking about in those country areas. I think those are the type of candidates who can keep the numbers down. But that said, interesting race. We'll see how that develops. Bill, give us your number 2.
Well, the number 2 is the county council race in District 1. So a very interesting district, swing district, district that some in Howard County feel is being held by Democratic County Council member Liz Walsh, only until Republican, although it's nonpartisan, Board of Education member Christina Delmont Small decides to eventually run for County Council in District 1. However, Delmont Small is not running in District 1 in 2022 that we know of. There is a gentleman named Sean McCurdy who seems to be quite a conservative Republican who is filed and is running for County Council in District 1. I believe there is absolutely no interest by this podcast to interview this gentleman, but you never know. However, in a very interesting turn of events, although not interesting maybe, Council Member Walsh is being challenged in the party by somebody who I know you Steve, we both know, but Steve, you know much better than I. Naveen Kurtam, former member of the Howard County Board of Appeals. And you know, this is a challenge from the left. You know, Council Member Walsh has been very, should I say skeptical is a kind word to frame it, on the current administration, county administration's development plans and on their intentions for affordable housing in Howard County. That's not to say that Liz Walsh is any sort of a no-growther or dino. She was to the left of where the administration was, although the administration met her in that place with respect to the county's contract with ICE. So, you know, this challenge coming from the left flank is a bit interesting, a bit concerning, because when Democrats fight and when Democrats try to play power politics by trying to kick grassroots Democratic elected officials out, as you just said, Steve, that typically doesn't end well. What are your thoughts?
Well, it is an interesting race, and you know, the point that you talk about with running against Council Member Walsh on the left, it's sometimes to the left, and sometimes you could say from the middle, because she has been a little bit all over the place. There are certainly issues where she has been to the left. You know, she supported, I believe, the increase to the minimum wage. You talked about the issues with ICE, the ICE contract, things of that nature. But certainly when it comes to development issues, you would say definitely more to the right as far as Councilmember Walsh. Certainly you can guarantee, we can't guarantee a lot on this program, but I think you can guarantee there are not going to be joint events where you were going to have Councilmember Walsh and County Executive Dr. Calvin Ball. There are certainly, I won't even say there was no love lost between the two, because I don't know if there was any love in the first place. Walsh very famously on another podcast did everything short of the moonwalk to avoid endorsing Dr. Ball over then County Executive Alan Kittleman. So there's certainly not going to be a laying of hands by Dr. Ball, or I don't think any other establishment Democrat in terms of Ms. Walsh, which I think creates the opening for Ms. Kurtam, because, you know, Walsh is going to be pretty much on her own, with the exception of perhaps Deb Young from District 4. They seem to, you know, be a bit joined at the hip on a lot of pieces of legislation and other matters. So, you know, Naveen Kurtam, very interesting candidate. As you said, I know her well from the Board of Appeals. She has served in other organizations, committees, etc. So she, as the old saying goes, she knows a lot of people. She did a recent press release with her steering committee, and the first name on the list was one C. Vernon Gray. So, you know, that gives it some instant, this is no joke feel to it. And there were some other prominent names on it. And I believe former Councilman Weinstein has provided his support also for Ms. Kurtam. So what's going to be interesting in this race is, A, what do Democrats do from a Howard County party establishment standpoint? Do they not touch it at all? Do they publicly or privately back Kurtam because of maybe some buyer's remorse about Ms. Walsh? We also need to remember that councilmanic maps are being redrawn, and the latest maps that I've seen that are out there, I think they could help Kurtam, because they eliminate some portions of the westernmost parts of District 1, which tend to be a little bit more conservative, a little bit more against development, things of that nature. and I believe they're replaced with areas closer to Columbia, maybe into Elkridge, borderline in Columbia. You'd have to say those would probably be a little bluer, which could favor a Curtom. So that's going to be another interesting element to the race, but certainly one to watch, no doubt.
So your question is interesting, and I have to tell you, Steve, I think you know the answer to your own question. What will the Democratic Party establishment do? They're going to support Naveen Curtom. They're not going to be supporting Liz Walsh. Liz Walsh did not win that race with the Democratic establishment in 2018. There were very few people. Here's one who said she could win. And in fact, she very well may likely win if there's another flood in Ellicott City. And sure enough, there was. But also sure enough, it took a recount and an ultimate 6-vote margin for her to successfully beat John Weinstein, the incumbent, in that race. John Weinstein, who then, actually turned around and endorsed Alan Kittleman for county executive in the 2018 race. So if, County Executive Ball is holding Liz Walsh's lack of an endorsement for him against her, and as to why he's supporting Naveen Curtom, at least she didn't support the other guy. So there is that. So very interesting partnerships, very interesting bedfellows to take a little bit out of the saying. I also think to frame Liz Walsh as a one-issue candidate, which is a anti or non-development candidate, would be a crucial error. Not just because, one, it's not true, but two, there are other issues, I think, that people care about, where I think Walsh is right on the money, which is in terms of social equity, which is in terms of economic opportunity. And even on the development issue, the issue isn't so much anti-development as it is, common sense, staying out of Ellicott City, especially historic Ellicott City, and overdeveloping that. And why aren't we getting the best bang for our buck? Why is there a relatively small cabal of land use attorneys, developers, builders, engineers who hold all the purse strings to everything that goes on in Howard County? So, there's a lot more there that's behind the scenes. And if you come at Liz Walsh with anti-development, she's going to say, I'm not anti-development, I'm anti-corruption, and then all bets are off. So be careful what you do.
Yep. And anti-development might not even be a winner if you go after that, because you talk about Ellicott City. I also have to talk about my friends on the other end of Route 1, and that is in Elkridge, where they support the Walsh position, on development. So, this is why this race is interesting. You talked about the very close election in 2018, the changes in the councilmanic map for District 1, the issues that are out there that are still very hot in Elkridge, in Ellicott City. This one's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. I could not tell you, if I was a betting man, I'd probably say I'd favor Walsh right now, but we're sitting here in January and a lot can happen. Like you said, if there's another flood, things of that nature. So a lot of ways this thing can go, a lot of plot twists before we get just to the primary, much less the general election. So yeah, stay tuned.
Ending our very short countdown at the number one race to watch in Howard County would be the race for Howard County Executive, in which, even though not everybody has filed yet, primary elections are sure to come on both the Democratic and Republican side. On the Republican side, former county executive Alan Kittleman has already announced that he wants his old job back, and so far faces primary competition in the most perennial candidate who is yet to actually appear on the ballot for anything. In other words, he files and then he drops out, Darren Villas. So the Republican icon, Darren Villas, will be facing Alan Kittleman in the Republican primary. On the Democratic side, Harry Slow Growth Dunbar is challenging incumbent county executive Calvin Ball. Steve, and then so the winners of those primaries, which I would presume at this point would be Ball and Kittleman, will face off in what I believe is a first in Howard County electoral politics, on at least at the executive level, a rematch. Steve, what do you think about this unique situation?
Yeah, I believe this is a first of the county. It goes back historically to Teddy Roosevelt trying to get his old job back over 100 years ago, I believe. But this one's going to be interesting because one, they're two former county executives. Two, they're both individuals who have won that job. Obviously, Kittleman in 2014, Ball in 2018 over Kittleman. I think there are some people out there who are thinking this is going to be some sort of cakewalk for Dr. Ball. Maybe there are Democrats who hope it is going to be a cakewalk so they don't have to sweat it. I don't agree with that assessment at all. I think that there are so many things that are going to play into this race, both between the two, things going on around the two of them, other races that may have an impact. So, last time I believe the margin was 5 points. So, that obviously is what, former county executive Kittleman needs to make up. But if you look at, I look at the races and we can do this another time, Bill. If I look at the environment in 2014 when Kittleman won, in 2018 when Ball won, and then look at some of the things that happened in 2020. And I will touch on those because, there are those who say, oh, it's gotten bluer since 2018. Well, in 2020, Matt Moyet, who ran as an unabashed, unapologetic progressive Democrat in District 1, got beat by a lot by one Christina Delmont Small, who we mentioned earlier. And in District 4, much to the shock of a lot of people, including you, me, and our dear friend Jason Booms, I think I made the statement if Jen Mallow finished south of 60, there'd be a problem. She finished south of 55 in District 4 in a race that clearly, ideologically speaking, you could draw a clear line. So, I look at the 2020 results in Howard County and I say to myself, there's an opening here, especially for an Alan Kittleman, who carries a certain veneer about him of being maybe a bit more moderate than he really is. But he certainly has, in the early days, aligned himself with groups who will come out, certainly who are part of the Republican base, as you would talk about it across the state, across the country. So the elements are there for us to get a Kittleman win. I hope Dr. Ball is working really, really hard to fortify his positions and, try to bring out that same coalition that brought him to victory in 2018. I hope that nobody on the Calvin Ball team is sleeping on this one, because if they do, they're going to be in for a surprise come November of this year.
Nobody in Maryland politics over the last 30 years has spent more time distancing themselves from their true nature than Alan Kittleman. He has been head of the Republican Central Committee, county council member, state senator, county executive, and he's running again. And every step of the way, look at the transfiguration of the Republican Party over those decades, from Contract with America to the George W. Bush administration to whatever McCain-Romneyism there was, and late, in the rise of the Tea Party, more importantly, in the late aughts and early 2010s, to Trumpism. All during that time, this man has done a fantastic job of saying, that's not me. That's them. That's those people in Washington. That's not me. I'm just a regular conservative guy. I'm your neighbor. I wear a tank top and American flag boxers and strut down, strut down River Hills 4th of July parade like I got no sense. He is right on that. He does have no sense, but he's got terrific political sense.
Yep.
And but what I'm saying is that's his DNA. It's like the saying goes, and it's like what Bane said to Batman in The Dark Knight Rises. You were trained to fight in the darkness. I was born in it. So, and that's where Alan Kittleman finds himself. He can and I remember the Calvin Ball commercials in 2018, standing at the Columbia Lakefront. I'm going to stand up to Trump and his claims. There's not that playbook this time, because Alan Kittleman's going to say, I'm not Trump. And he's going to say that as easy as a duck can shed water off its back. And whether it's true or not, and I don't think it's true, it's going to play. It's going to work. It's going to be effective. So then what else do we got if you're Calvin Ball?
Yeah.
You do have a record. You have a really good record, I think. However, you've also done some stuff to piss some people off. A lot of stuff that went on in the school redistricting, not all of which was, is bad. In fact, most of which was good. But let's call it as we see it. There were a lot of Democrats who were upset with the way school redistricting went down. We've already talked about District 1 and a primary challenge supported by an administration-supported candidate against an incumbent. That same scenario is looking to play itself out in District 4. So in that measure, you're almost undercutting some of your own base. Steve, you brought up another factor. I believe what we saw in Howard County in those 2020 local races you mentioned is suggestive of the fact that Howard County was predicting what happened in Virginia in 2021. People looked at local candidates, people looked at candidates who they saw as homegrown, and they did not draw the connection between those people and Donald Trump. I mean, you mentioned Moyet. I mean, I can't really speak to his messaging, but I remember there being lots of messaging, saying Trump, DeVos, and Delmont Small.
Yes. Yep.
Well, people didn't see that.
I believe there were people who were referring to her as Christina DeVos Small.
Right. People weren't seeing that connection. And then the same thing with Suzanne Palmer, the candidate in District 4. People saw a well-presented, passionate education activist and advocate. They didn't, who happened to be on more the libertarian side of things. They didn't see, some, person who was going to throw creationism and prayer back into schools. They didn't see it. And I'm not saying that she was going to do that, but I'm just saying they didn't see somebody who was a hard rightist. And so that's them. So now we got the master of that game coming down the pike. I mean, these are the little kids in Cobra Kai. Now we got the sensei coming down the pike. So Calvin Ball better bring all his Miyagi dough and all of his dough, period. I'm not going to say from who, to wage this campaign, and it needs to be about achievement, the future. It needs to be about destiny. There's only one problem with that, which is when it turns to development. I mean, developers had a good friend in Alan Kittleman. They've also got a really good friend in Calvin Ball. So I don't know how this one plays out. On the surface of it, if this election were held today, I would say flip a coin, because I think it would literally be that close.
Yeah, I mean, I could go, that's it. I mean, you hit everything everywhere, so I won't extend this podcast any longer than we need to with my own long analysis. I'll give you my very short analysis. If you took the state of Virginia and turned it over to Scott Pym, aka Ant-Man, and let him shrink Virginia down, it could look a lot like Howard County. And Alan Kittleman rolls, in terms of presentation, a lot like Glenn Youngkin. So my message to Dr. Calvin Ball, if you're listening, don't be Terry McAuliffe.
And unfortunately, Democratic talking heads, message machine people, that's what they want. They want canned, they want prepared, they don't want populist, they want buzzwords. And look how well that did for good old Terry.
Yep.
Well, Steve, this has been an exhilarating episode of this podcast. I say we do this again in a week or so. And in fact, absolutely, at our next episode, which is scheduled for Monday of Martin Luther King's holiday, January 17th, we will be interviewing Ashwani Jain, Democratic candidate for governor of the state of Maryland. So, any closing thoughts on your end, Steve?
Well, looking forward to Martin Luther King Day, and I believe that's our first interview with a gubernatorial candidate. We've obviously going to look to have others out there. I know you've reached out to a few campaigns, so really looking forward to that, and not only what they are looking in terms of their vision for the state of Maryland as it relates to Howard County, where we obviously do our program. So looking forward to that. And then as far as our wrap up of Howard County, obviously the filing deadline comes up in February. Looking forward to doing another one of these shows where we can, break things down based on who's officially in at the time. And obviously we have the filing deadlines for campaign finance. So it'll be interesting to see where some money is falling or not falling. So it's 2022. Like I said in the last podcast, really looking forward to this with all the campaigns and other action.
The thought occurred
and the new name for the WFT.
That's right. The thought occurred that we should do the same thing for other jurisdictions. Baltimore City, County, Montgomery, Prince George's, etc. That could be fun. All right, everybody. So also, last thing I'll mention, be sure, or two things. Be sure to like and subscribe to Forward Maryland channel on YouTube. It's apparently important. Apparently some people look at these numbers. And the other thing is coming soon, Awards 2021. You won't want to miss it. For Steve Hunt, my name is Bill Woodcock. You have been watching or listening to Forward Maryland. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.